Have you ever been in a situation so twisted it left you speechless, where someone screamed at you, humiliated you, shattered your heart, and just hours later, they walked back in with a smile like nothing happened? No apology, no explanation, just, "What do you want for dinner?" As if you were overreacting, and they just had a normal day. If that hits home, welcome to the upside-down world of narcissistic abuse, where your emotions are erased, your memories are rewritten, and your reality is constantly redefined. In today's video, we're diving deep into the psychology of the narcissist to uncover why they can hurt you so cruelly and then act like it never happened. We'll unravel the layers of defense they use to deny wrongdoing, from gaslighting and emotional dissociation to reality distortion and narrative control, and explore how they build a world where they're the victim and you are the problem. This isn't just about coldness, it's about psychological survival, and understanding it is key to your escape. If you've ever felt like you're trapped in a parallel universe, where your pain is minimized and your trauma is dismissed as too sensitive, then this video is for you. Hit subscribe and watch until the end, because the truth you're about to hear may just be the beginning of reclaiming your life. Part 1. Why do narcissists act like nothing happened after hurting you? When a narcissist wounds you with cruel words, cold silence, or explosive rage, and then walks back into your life as if nothing happened, you don't just feel hurt, you feel disoriented. You wonder, did they actually forget what just happened? Or worse, do they remember and simply not care? The painful truth is, they remember, and they choose to deny it. This isn't a fleeting lapse of empathy. It's a refined, rehearsed survival strategy, a mechanism they've used for years to preserve the one thing they care most about, their fractured, inflated sense of self. Pretending everything is normal after abuse isn't forgetfulness. It's gaslighting in its most advanced form, not just aimed at you, but also at themselves. They're not just manipulating you, they're manipulating reality. By behaving as if nothing serious happened, they're desperately holding on to the illusion that they're a good person, misunderstood, or never in the wrong. Because if they paused, just for a moment, to truly face the pain they've caused, they would have to confront a truth they cannot bear, that they're the one causing harm, not the one being harmed. For a narcissist, admitting wrongdoing isn't just shameful, it's psychologically annihilating. In their world, admitting fault equals admitting the powerful persona they built is a lie, and that's a collapse they won't survive. So they pretend, they walk into the room as if they didn't just scream at you. They smile like they didn't leave you crying on the floor. They send a good morning text after ghosting you in your darkest moment. Every action has one purpose: to erase history, control the narrative, and keep the mask from slipping. They know it confuses you. They know it makes you question yourself. But that's the darkest win. The moment you ask, "Am I overreacting?" they've regained control. It doesn't just hurt you, it disconnects you from your own sense of reality. And once that connection breaks, once you doubt your memory, your feelings, your truth, you become easier to manipulate, easier to forgive, easier to draw back in. That's why narcissists are masters at returning not to love, but to reclaim control. In Part 2, we'll break down exactly how they use denial, dissociation, and reality revision to dodge responsibility, and why waiting for an apology from them is the trap that keeps you stuck. Part 2. Denial, emotional disconcentration, and reality retritis. How narcissists escape accountability. Here's the brutal truth. Narcissists don't just reject your emotions, they also reject their own, and this is how they survive. When they hurt you, their reaction isn't remorse, it isn't understanding, it's emotional detachment. They don't touch the pain, they freeze it. They don't face consequences. They rewrite the narrative to convince themselves nothing serious happened. This isn't impulsive, it's a deeply rooted defense mechanism, often developed in childhood. Many narcissists grew up in environments where emotions were dangerous, seen as weak or threatening, So they learn to survive by building a mask. Powerful, untouchable, always right. To keep that mask intact, they must do one thing: deny any memory, moment, or behavior that makes them the bad guy. So, after hurting you, they don't apologize. They wipe the emotional slate clean. They start over as if nothing happened. This isn't ignorance, it's control. You say, "You screamed at me." They say, "You're being dramatic." You say, "You hurt me." They smile and reply, "Everyone gets mad sometimes." These aren't just excuses. They're deliberate attempts to distort reality, to make you question yourself, and to let them continue their fantasy of being the good one. And here's the terrifying part. They believe it. After causing harm, they don't just hide it from you, they hide it from themselves. They box it up, push it aside, and convince themselves it never happened. So when they walk back into your life, they're not just pretending, they're living in a self-created alternate reality where they're innocent. You're grounded in reality. They are not. That's why when you bring up the hurt, they act annoyed. You're cracking the illusion. You're threatening the mask. And to them, that's dangerous. They can't face the truth, so they attack you for speaking it. They'll call you too emotional, paranoid, toxic. They'll flip the story until you feel like you're the one who should apologize. This is the ultimate emotional manipulation, where the abuser becomes the victim, and the victim ends up confused and apologizing. That's why you should never wait for accountability from a narcissist. Not because they don't know what they did, but because admitting it would destroy the fragile self-image they cling to. They can't give it, because doing so would mean losing control, losing power, and ultimately losing themselves. And you can't keep living in a relationship where truth is a threat and your emotions are treated like a burden. In Part 3, we'll explore one of the narcissist's most dangerous tools of control, gaslighting, the art of making you doubt what you know is real. Part 3. Gaslighting. The art of rewriting reality and erasing you from your own story. If you've ever found yourself confused, doubting, whispering, "Did I really remember that right? Am I just too sensitive? Maybe it really was my fault," then you've been gaslit. Gaslighting isn't a misunderstanding, it's psychological warfare. It's one of the most dangerous forms of emotional abuse because it doesn't attack your behavior. It attacks your memory, your perception, your identity. Narcissists use gaslighting as a weapon to delete mental evidence, because if you can't trust your own mind, they get to rewrite the story, and you'll believe it. That's when you enter their reality, a world where they decide what happened, is who is wrong, who gets to feel heard, and who's just overreacting. You say, "You yelled at me last night." They smirk and reply, "You're imagining things." I raise my voice. That's it. You always exaggerate everything. "You pushed me too far. It's on you." Each phrase is a pin in your sense of truth, slowly deflating your certainty. And the moment you start asking, "Am I crazy?" they win. Gaslighting is silent. It's relentless. It's psychological erosion. It causes you to disconnect from yourself. You stop trusting your memory. You question your feelings. You start relying on them to tell you what's real. And in that moment, they've stripped you of your voice. This is the nightmare. You begin apologizing for being heard. You walk on eggshells, trying to avoid triggering them. You blame yourself for wanting something as basic as an apology. But the truth is, you're not weak. You've been reprogrammed to play a role in their performance. They use gaslighting to reshape the story, casting themselves as calm, logical, the reasonable one, and you as unstable, emotional, dramatic. They'll perform for friends, family, even therapists if they have to. And if someone outside the relationship catches a glimpse of the truth, they'll spin it until you look like the problem. So don't be surprised if you feel like you're going crazy. You're not. You're being manipulated at the core of your consciousness. What makes gaslighting so devastating is that it leaves no visible wounds, no bruises, no scars, just a broken spirit, a hollowed identity, and a survivor who doesn't even know they're being abused. In the next part, we'll uncover why narcissists never truly apologize, and how waiting for their validation only keeps you trapped in an invisible war You were never meant to win. Part 4. Why narcissists never truly apologize. When someone hurts you, you don't need them to be perfect, you just need them to take responsibility. A simple, "I'm sorry I hurt you." A moment of real remorse, it's all you ask. But with a narcissist, you could wait forever, not because they don't know you're hurting, but because they refuse to acknowledge they caused it. For a narcissist, an apology isn't just an admission of behavior, it's an identity crisis. Because saying, "I was wrong," would mean confronting the very parts of themselves they've spent a lifetime hiding. Their smallness, their shame, their imperfection, and that, to them, is worse than death. You see, they don't build their identity on truth. They build it on image, an image of being righteous, superior, in control. A genuine apology threatens to fracture that mask. So when they do apologize, it often sounds like, "I'm sorry if you felt hurt. I'm sorry, but you weren't innocent either. I'm sorry, but you made me do it." That's not remorse. That's ego preservation. The apology isn't for you, it's for them to stay in control to avoid accountability. And that's why, when you beg for real acknowledgement, it backfires. You don't just get ignored, you get blamed. You're told you're the one overreacting. You're the one keeping drama alive. Here's the truth. Narcissists don't truly apologize because they cannot bear to see themselves as wrong. In their world, if they're wrong, they're unlovable. If they're weak, they're worthless. If they caused harm, they're a failure. So instead of confronting that, they erase the evidence. They rewrite the story, and they make you question why you ever asked for an apology in the first place. You start thinking, maybe I'm being too much. Maybe I don't need to hear them say it. And just like that, you surrender a basic human need to protect the false image they live behind. But you don't have to do that. You don't have to carry the burden of being the bigger person for someone who's never once stepped into the emotional arena with you. The truth is, narcissists don't apologize because they've never truly connected to your pain. Your pain doesn't register in their emotional world. It doesn't move them. It doesn't pierce the surface enough to spark change. The longer you wait for an apology, the longer you remain trapped in toxic hope. You don't need empty words. You need action. You need truth. You need peace. In the next part, we'll explore the pivotal shift. What happens when you stop asking and start walking away? You'll discover the silent power of disengagement and why sometimes saying nothing is the loudest message of all. Part 5. The power of silence. When non-reaction is the strongest rejection, you tried talking, you tried reasoning, you begged, cried, explained, wrote long messages, waited for replies that never came. All you wanted were 3 simple words. "I'm sorry." But all you got was silence, or worse, mockery. And then, something changed. You got tired. Not just angry or sad, but exhausted to your core. That's when it happens. You stop talking, you stop explaining, you stop reacting, and in that moment you step into your true power. Silence isn't weakness. It's a declaration. It's the final refusal, not because you're defeated, but because you're done, because you've woken up. In a narcissist's world, they live and breathe through your reactions. Every time you argue, plead, break down, they feel powerful, validated, important. Even your hatred fuels them, because any reaction is still attention, still control. So when you stop reacting, you become their worst nightmare. You're no longer a player in their performance. You've left the stage, and now they're alone with a mask no one's watching. Silence is choosing not to explain to someone who never wanted to understand. It's walking away without needing closure. It's knowing that your exit says everything words never could. And that silence, so still, so calm, forces the narcissist to face what they've avoided all their life. They no longer control you. They no longer affect you. They are no longer relevant in your story. You think they don't care? Think again. They care, not because they miss you, but because they've lost their grip on you. Your silence becomes a void they can't fill. They can't twist it. They can't manipulate it. It's clear. It's final. Here again, it's untouchable. Narcissists can wear 100 masks, but they can't perform without an audience. And when you go quiet, you don't just leave a toxic relationship. You end the manipulation loop that's kept you stuck for so long. You reclaim your mental space, your voice, your identity. In the next part, we'll explore what happens next. The haunting aftermath. Why your silence becomes a psychological mirror they can't escape. And how you become the chapter they can never rewrite. Part 6. When silence becomes obsession. The narcissist's loss of control. Narcissists fear rejection, but they despise indifference. When you hate them, they're still the center. When you argue, they still matter. Even when you expose them, they're still part of the narrative. But when you walk away in silence, they become irrelevant. They are erased from your reality. And that's not just an ending, it's an annihilation. No performance, no reaction, no audience. And that drives them mad. Your silence is more than absence. It's proof of a truth they've spent their whole life denying. That they are not irreplaceable. That they don't hold the power they thought they did. That they're not as special as they made you believe. And when they realize you don't need them, not because you found someone new, but because you finally chose yourself, their entire illusion begins to collapse. You don't call, don't you respond, you don't check their updates. You vanished from their emotional universe, and that disappearance haunts them in a way your anger never could. They start checking on you from a distance. They ask mutual friends. They fabricate stories. She's still obsessed with me. You never really understood me. But deep down, they know the truth. They're the one who can't let go. You've become the one who got away. Not because you were lost, but because you woke up. You're the one who saw through them and left without asking for closure. No begging, no pleading, no parting gift of power. That's what obsesses them. Because narcissists can't stand a truth that isn't bent to their will. And you, in your silence, but preserve that truth exactly as it is. Every time they see you thriving, they're reminded of what they couldn't control. And no matter who they move on to, no matter how they pretend, you remain the one they couldn't define. In the final part, we'll bring it all together, from the moment you stopped reacting to the moment you reclaimed your story and became the proof that you don't need validation from someone who has rejected their own humanity. Maybe for a long time you believed their silence after hurting you was the answer. They just didn't care. But today you understand that's not the full truth. Narcissists aren't silent because they feel nothing. They're silent because admitting the truth would destroy the fragile illusion they've built around themselves. They don't apologize, don't acknowledge, don't respond. Not because they're indifferent, but because truth is dangerous to the false identity they protect at all costs. You've spent years, maybe decades, trying to explain your pain. You thought that if you were patient enough, kind enough, strong enough to endure it, they would eventually see. You believed that if it hurt badly enough, they would understand. But now you know better, because the truth is, you can't heal someone who refuses to admit they're causing harm. You can't rescue someone who is dragging you under and call it love. You walked away, not because you stopped loving them, but because you finally chose to love yourself more than you feared losing them. That moment when you went quiet, when you stopped explaining, stopped justifying, stopped begging, that was the moment you stepped out of their twisted illusion and reclaimed your power. That silence, to them it felt like absence. But to you, it was the loudest truth you've ever spoken. No one heard you scream, but everyone saw you rise. You're no longer the one seeking validation. You are now the one who defines your own worth. The narcissist may never admit it, but you were the one they couldn't control. They'll never send a real apology. And you know what? You don't need it anymore. Because real freedom doesn't come from being acknowledged by someone who rejected your humanity. It comes from seeing yourself clearly and saying, I was always enough. I don't need your permission to exist. And I no longer need to play a role in your story to prove my value. You've been through the pain, the confusion, the sleepless nights. You've asked, am I crazy? Am I the one to blame? Was I too much? The answer is no. You weren't wrong. You were being manipulated. You're not a victim anymore. You are a survivor. You are the one who stood up from the wreckage. You are the one who chose silence, not as a retreat, but as a reclamation of the space they once occupied inside your soul. You don't need someone else to affirm your value. You don't need their agreement, their closure, their apology. You are the living proof that healing begins the moment you stare cruelty in the face and say, "No, I deserve better than this." They may go on pretending, performing, manipulating someone new, but they'll always remember you. Not as just an but as the one who couldn't be broken, the one who saw the truth, the one who didn't need a final conversation or validation or applause, the one who left in silence and collapsed the entire stage. You don't need revenge. You don't need a perfect ending. You just need to live a life they can never reach, not through memories, not through manipulation, not through guilt. Their life is the evidence that you are not shattered, you are liberated, you are not lost, you are reborn, and you are not forgotten, because you are the chapter they will never be able to rewrite. If this video spoke to something deep inside you, if it made you feel seen, understood, or just a little more free, don't leave in silence. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell. Because here, we name the truth others are afraid to say. Leave a comment below and tell me, what was your turning point? When did you stop reacting and start reclaiming yourself? Share this video with someone who needs to know. They're not alone, they're not crazy, and they are not broken. Because healing is contagious, and your courage could be the spark that sets someone else free. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay grounded, stay free, and never give your voice to someone who's afraid of hearing the truth.